What's going on, guys? It's Unknown Player here, and today once again we're going to be talking about Vanguard farming and the best methods to farm a Vanguard rep this week. Anytime there are good modifiers that can be taken advantage of, I'll normally be farming Vanguard and telling you guys my best ways to do so. This week it's not just as easy or as simple as small arms, arc burn, but this time there are a lot of weapons and a lot of armor combinations you can use effectively to burn through strikes. So I'm going to be going through my general tips and what I think is best to use so you can get as many of those Vanguard packages as possible. So going through the modifiers real quick, the first one is solar burn, meaning of course your solar weapons are going to do a lot more damage. Any solar subclasses, grenades, anything to do with solar is going to be increased, and of course the enemies as well. There's also small arms, which means your primary weapon damage is going to be increased, and also juggler, which means ammo is going to be a lot harder to come by. So in terms of the armor and subclass, I would highly recommend the gunslinger, of course, with the Celestial Nighthawk exotic helmet. If you have that, definitely throw it on. It's a good choice. And also make sure you have the Deadeye perk selected. That gives you bonus damage for the golden gun. It was something recently added in the June update, but make sure you have the Deadeye perk for bonus golden gun damage. So while solar burn is pretty cool as a modifier itself, the main one I'm going to focus on is small arms. I think that's more important in this situation, and something I always say about small arms that still not a lot of people know about is it actually decreases the damage of your other weapon types. So it increases your primary weapon and decreases your special and heavy weapon damage. So if you use your rocket launcher or your sniper, they're actually doing, I believe, 30% less damage because small arms prioritizes your primary and decrease the other two. So try and use your primary as much as possible. And so for that reason, I'm going to recommend as a weapon the Xalo Supercell. Now, obviously, the Xalo is arc damage and it's completely the wrong modifier, but regardless of what element it does, it's still one of the best primaries to use with small arms. It's got a really good damage output. It's also easy to use. You don't have to try too hard with scout rifles and be precise. You just hose down enemies. You can also get double kills to give you back some ammo, which will help you out with juggler, which is really good. So juggler, personally, I didn't even notice because I was never running out of ammo. If you put on a chest piece that gives you extra auto rifle ammo, then basically you're going to be all set and you're never going to run out. And also, of course, it's going to electrocute enemies that are nearby. So generally, the Xalo is one of my favorite weapons to use in PvE, and it's a very strong choice. And even though it's solar burn, I would still recommend the Xalo over anything else. So in terms of the other weapons I was using, other than the Xalo, of course, that's going to take up the exotic slot. I was using a solar sniper, one of the solar 1000 yards that I've got, which is a decent choice. I was also using the Soul Edge, which is the solar version of the legendary swords that you get. I think swords are personally one of my favorite weapons to use in PvE. And in terms of damage, they're very good as well. So I personally love to use the sword, and of course the solar one is going to do you best. So those are the weapons I was using. So the Celestial Nighthawk was a really fun exotic to use. It destroys a load of bosses. So the flares, for example, you can kill them in one shot. Each actual flare, you can just one-shot them. I've only tried it with the solar flare. I'm not sure if you can one-shot the other two with the different elements. I'm assuming you can, but either way, the flares just get pretty much destroyed. They're a piece of cake with the Celestial Nighthawk. Now, in terms of the other bosses, most of them tend to do about a third of the damage to maybe 40%, depending on who they are. Some of the more tankier bosses, of course, take less damage, but most of them you will do a big chunk if you hit them. The Shield Brothers are one of the weaker enemies, of course, because they have the little mechanics where they run away. Now, with the Shield Brothers, you can basically do enough damage to make them flee. I think it's like 50 or 60% to make them kind of like go into flee, and they regenerate a little bit. But I've done it so many times where they come out, and then I just one-shot them, and they run straight back in, and it's a really, really easy encounter. The main thing to worry about is all the Cabal that do solar damage with their primary weapons. But I'd say the adds are probably the more difficult part of any boss fight. The bosses themselves get destroyed. One boss to watch out for is the Undying Mind, because he does solar damage. He can output a ton of solar splash damage to you, so watch out for him. Also, Vaz to Arc, his slug thrower also does solar. And of course, the Saber Strike, his first actual attack, the little sniper he has on his turret, that does solar as well. So that'll pretty much one-shot you, I think. So some of the bosses can be a little bit tricky, but for the most part, it's nowhere near as bad as Arc Burn, where a ton of the enemies do arc damage. So solar is quite a good modifier, and if you've got two other people, so 3 of you in total, all using the Celestial, you're going to destroy so many of these bosses, and pretty much any major that steps in your way. It does a ton of damage. The Raise Lighter is not one that I would recommend personally. I think it's a bit too dangerous as a weapon, being that close, and a lot of the mobs can do solar damage and just completely wreck you. And I think it's also a bit overkill. The Phoenix Uppercut the Raise Lighter does, I think, is way too much damage. Like, you'll kill pretty much any major boss or any enemy with the Raise Lighter in normal without solar burn. So with solar burn, I think it's a little bit wasted to do so much damage, and there's not many enemies that will survive a Raise Lighter normally. So with solar burn, I don't think it's that much needed. So I'll just go with the normal sword for anything. Now, one weapon that is very, very good is the Sleeper Simulant. This, of course, does a ton of solar damage. This is a very good choice. I'd recommend, honestly, that second to the Xalo Supercell. I think it's a solid choice. Also, the Lord of Wolves is a great one. That does a ton of damage, so much damage, but of course it will be decreased with small arms, so bear that in mind. And finally, if you have a full auto shotgun like the Stolen Wheel archetype, which does solar, that is going to melt through bosses as well. So thankfully this week there's quite a lot of choices. It's not as simple as just using the Xylo. You can use a ton of different stuff and equally do well. There's a lot of good choices. So the final thing I have to say is of course the 3 generic tips to remember for Vanguard rep. Make sure you wear a Vanguard rep class item that gives you increased reputation. Have someone in your fire team also pop a Vanguard rep booster. And finally, make sure you stay in the playlist and don't back out so you get the streak buff and you get increased rep and also increased drops. So there we have it. That is the Vanguard Strike playlist for the week. And of course, my recommendations on gear to go in with. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below if you managed to get anything cool from your Vanguard packages. I'm hoping I can get an LDR, but probably not going to happen. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.